I mean, even if it's ugly, you just have to know, and it's not going to always be pretty. But that's how that's how you are able to determine what you need to fix. Some people want to put their head in the sand and not see the reality of their business.
Welcome to More Business, More Life podcast. And today my guest is Rhett Acelar, and he's got two businesses, Historic Prints and Globe Warehouse e-commerce stores. And we're going to talk about over a decade of e-commerce businesses, ups and downs, crises, even currently what's going on, and how do you keep thriving? Because even during one of the biggest crises in decades, he's actually able to keep his business going. So we're going to talk about all of that and more. Thanks, Rhett, so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
It's actually my pleasure. This is going to be a treat because you and I have known each other a long time, and This whole show, More Business, More Life, is kind of the epitome of our relationship because both you and I, both of us have seen our ups and downs during the time that we've known each other now, over a decade, and to be in a place now where we truly can have more business and more life. I've been wanting to share your story for a long time now. So I really am grateful to have you on the show and really do. So I guess maybe to start there is how you've designed your life to be a father, to be a husband, and yet still be a businessman. And maybe if you to give the audience a quick synopsis of where you are right now.
Well, to sum it all up, it's been an evolution, really. It's and you've seen me. Yeah, it's been over a decade. Actually, we met about 12 years ago.
Yeah,
and so I had. I don't know, where should we start, Steve?
Well, yeah. Well, I look at it this way. I know there's so much, so the mind is full. But I remember when I had met you, you were with a different startup, and then that didn't work out. And then when we reconnected and we really took off with our, with where we went, and as I started to help you with your business, it was when I just remember you were in the basement of that house, and started this e-commerce business.
Right.
And I think we could pick that apart, but I kind of want to start with where things are now, just to give people a little light. So now you're mostly a father, and you're kind of like a full-time father and a part-time entrepreneur, but yet still able to have an amazing income and a life, and basically be able to do that and basically be successful. That's why I say this is the epitome of more business, more life. You have both. You have more business than you've had before, and you have more life than you had before.
Yeah. Well, it was by design. It was definitely by design. And with your help, with some of the advice that you gave in our early days of our coaching client relationship. I was working in the basement and servicing local businesses with physical goods, and you were there during my transition to take things online and not have to deal with basically to scale the business and not have to be there in person for every single sale. And I do remember the time where we started to talk about designing our life and then the business around it. And it was hard for me to grasp that because everything was business first and then life, then you build your life around it. So it was a real paradigm shift for me to think of it, to flip it and think about, okay, how do I want my life to be, and how do I start to build my business around that? So once we did that, once we started that exercise, I was able to slowly, it doesn't happen overnight, but evolve the business into the way it could, the way it could be right now, where I could work part-time as an entrepreneur and a full-time father, which is amazing.
It's so awesome. And you're right. That's why you said it's by design, and it truly is. And I had the same realization, and then I was able to show you. But I do know it's hard for people to digest because we've pretty much been trained. We've been brought up like, what's your career? What are you going to do? How are you going to make money? And all these things take the precedence when then what happens is we think that, and I saw this with too many people, and then including myself, where I would make a big chunk of money, or I'd see other people become really wealthy, and then they were completely unhappy, and they built a treadmill, and they're running on a treadmill that they no longer wanted to be on. And then it's really scary to get off because you kind of built this life around it. So then that's when I started saying, well, what do I want? And I think that's what came back to the question for you. It's like, well, what do you want? Because we do know, you and I are both creative people. We can build business. So how the hell do we want to build it?
Yeah.
So this is amazing that you have, a part-time entrepreneur and a full-time dad. And most people have the opposite, right? Like being an entrepreneur, they say, oh, I've heard people say, if you're not working 80 hours a week, you're not an entrepreneur. Like people actually say this. And then here you are having a really, successful business. And I don't know if you want to say exactly what that is, but there's multiple commas involved, and you've done really well, right? And you are doing this part. So this is a reality, and that's why I think partly we have like a little bit of a responsibility to share these things, because you and I both, I know in your heart, you want to help other people have this, and it's all comes down to beliefs. Because you're kind of saying what I just heard you say, just to reiterate, is that you had this paradigm shift. You flipped it, and it was, through some outside force. It was like me saying, hey, Rhett, what if we design your life and then build your business around that? And it was like, what are you talking about? Usually it's the other way around. And so just by us sharing your story, it's a blessing to other people, because it's not just me sharing it. Now you're sharing it. It's like proof that other people are doing this. So then thereby the belief can be stronger for other people. So I guess when you look at designing your life, like,
Steve, I do remember that watershed moment. It was when you told me I need to know my numbers, and you had asked me if I had my books in order, and I told you no, it's a complete mess, or I didn't have anything. And so you said the first thing I need to do is to the copy of QuickBooks and to start to enter in my sales and expenses. And so that's the first thing I did. So I think for any entrepreneur, and if you're whether you're a wannabe entrepreneur, or an entrepreneur just getting started, or even an experienced entrepreneur, most entrepreneurs just want to go. They just want to sell, or they want to, build. They want to work on everything except for the numbers. Nobody wants to do the numbers, right? So to stop, to enter in, do some of that dirty work, and put in the numbers. I could see, okay, where are my sales coming from? How much am I spending? And that started to build a map. Okay. And then I could see, okay, here's where I'm at, and this is where I want to go. So that's number one. You need to have your books in order, period.
It makes so much evidence of what to do, because then when you are that go person, you can go in the right direction. Because if you go and then you hit a wall, and then it hurts financially, I do remember that when you and I worked together and we created a dashboard that evolved over like the 8 years that we worked together. And that dashboard really shows you, just like a car, it just shows you, like, am I out of gas? Do I need more gas? Do we need more oil? Are we going good? And even now it's like, how, look at our new cars. Now it has tire pressure gauges and all these gauges, right? So we know like what's going on. And if you know what's going on, then you can actually have the dream that you're having right now. You can actually look at your dashboard, know the health of your business,
Yep.
and then know that you can go outside with your son and play.
Yep.
Because you
Yep.
know the business, and then you also can see, oh no, what happened there? And
Right.
then you can pull out emergency phone calls and say, hey, we got a hole in the tire. Let's
Right.
fix this. You know,
So it was
yeah.
one step at a time. It was okay. Enter in my sales, enter in my expenses. Now build the dashboard. And so with that, we started to track what stores, our online stores, are doing what. And we started to build other metrics that would help us make good business decisions. So yeah, and we started to break it down. We didn't do it all at once.
No.
This was an evolution. We started to add, okay, well, now we've got this metric down, and even after a year, let's start to track this, and that would also help, make some good business decisions. So yeah, I think the number one thing, and it sucks, I know, I hate doing it. I have to put on techno music when I'm looking at numbers to keep me awake. It's
and now you have people helping
thing.
you. And now you have people helping you, right? So we
do.
get bookkeepers and all that. But at the beginning, I remember the beginning when you were in that basement, it was you. Like you literally entered every bid in there, was making your own P&L until we had enough revenue to get a bookkeeper.
Right. Yep. Then I was able to afford a full-time bookkeeper. Yep. Yeah.
And then the reward is that much greater because you like don't want to do this. But it's one of those things. It's it's so important to know what's going on, because then we have the business information to make the decisions, and it's important.
Even if it's ugly. Even if it's ugly, you just have to know, and it's not going to always be pretty. But that's how that's how you are able to determine what you need to fix. Some people want to put their head in the sand and not see the reality of their business. But number one.
Yeah, so just one story popped in my head right when you said that. I had another client that was like, I'm terrible at my books. And I'm like, and I was doing the same thing I was doing with you, Rhett. I was like, we got to look at the books. Looked at the books. The books were immaculate. It was like, oh my gosh. Like I was thinking the worst because he told me, but the numbers were ugly.
Yeah.
They were negative. It was not the numbers you wanted, but I was like, your books are great. You're tracking everything great. What we don't like is your business. Like we need to change the business, but then we were able to change it. And now that person that I'm talking about has a $1 million business.
Yeah.
And was just able to buy the house of his dreams recently before this. And, it's those things, those stories come from us knowing and tracking. And, many entrepreneurs have said this before, business people, is that what is not measured cannot be, grown. Like if we want to grow something or we want to improve something, then we got to know where we're starting and then where do we want to go. And then, when you and I did that exercise, what became apparent was it just to shed some more light, because I don't like to be vague. Like sometimes I like to get, granular on this show because I want to help people. But how did we know what to track? I would ask you questions. I'll be like, okay, well, what's most important? What gives us our highest profit? How can we increase profit? And then we started tracking what would tell us the answer, right?
Yeah. What stores were most profitable, and where do we start to focus our resources in terms of our human resources, time, energy, money. And it worked out. It worked out great. Now I did take my eye off the ball. There was a period where I took my eye and really didn't look at. I'll have to admit, with all this freedom, I remember in 2017, the machine was running. The machine was running. I was my best year ever. I worked maybe literally the 4-hour work week. And I was bored. It was the perfect timing because my son was just born in late October, in late 2016 in October. And so I took 2017 just to cruise. Now, cruising is good. And I had set up my company to cruise well, but I didn't keep I took my eyes off the dashboard a little bit too long and too much. And so things got off course. So 2018, I had to refocus, look at the numbers. Yeah, and had some bumps in the road, but yeah, got back on track.
Yeah, and
Thankfully, I had to make some adjustments, but that's entrepreneurship. You're gonna find bumps in the road, and that's another thing. It's not gonna always be smooth. I mean, in business, especially when you have your own business. I mean, there's going to be curveballs, things that you don't expect, and it's going to always come at you. You just have to, you have to be resilient. You have to not panic, and you have to adapt when necessary, and keep moving forward. Yeah, because
always go ahead. There's always change.
There is always change, and so I started. So I'm in e-commerce now, and I've been in e-commerce for the last 10 years, and it has evolved so much. All these different marketplaces, from Amazon, eBay, Walmart, and just the way the consumer behavior, how they shop. I mean, everything's so fluid, changing. Policies are changing. I mean, you really have to be on top of your business and your industry, and you have to be ready to adapt and change, and especially in this industry that I'm in, e-commerce has changed so much. And yeah, and no matter what industry you're in, you just have to be ready to adapt and change, and and handle the adversities that can and will come.
And it goes hand in hand with what we've already been talking about, because basically once we set up that dashboard, we're able to see the things quicker. So it's kind of like having better headlights on your car when you're in the fog, like you can see, or you have fog lamps, you can switch those on. We're able to see those things quicker. And then sometimes when we put it on cruise control a little too long, and then we're like, oh crap, there's a bumper coming up. And so you had that moment there. But I guess I'm just bringing it to right now. Right now we're recording this while we're during a crisis, and that's happening right now. And I think this is really potentially evergreen, because how many crises have you gone through in the last 10 years? I remember several of them. Sometimes it was because of an economic situation, sometimes because of a business decision, but we're able to make through that. And maybe even just speaking to that for a moment, like right now, like we went through a global change. We're, just so everyone knows, we're recording this what was called COVID-19. Like maybe you're listening to this in the future and you're hearing this and you're like, oh, what was that? Well, you can look it up. But the reality is that it happened. And when I called you, I've called a lot of my clients and friends, and I'm like, how are you doing? And you're like, okay, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. You were ready to make the change. And I think, the last 10 years was like the warm up for this. And so maybe share, whatever details you feel like sharing, but I mean, share like the process that just occurred in your mind in the last like 8 weeks.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to get into like where my mind was, but I think when the crisis hit, I was just, when the crisis started to build, the scare started to build, the information was coming out that it was jumping from China to Italy and now into the US, and it's coming. I mean, they're announcing school closures and business closures. It was kind of I don't know what kicked in, but maybe it was a fight or flight type of moment for me. But I just started working on my business more than ever before. Like, how am I ready? Like, the world is going to change. Am I going to be ready, for this change that's coming up? So I got into my business. My numbers were affected. My sales were affected. I mean, I think that everybody across the country. I mean, I sell goods, a variety of goods, online and to customers all across the U.S. And I think the widespread panic had caused everybody to stop. So my sales had really just stopped, and I didn't know how long it would last. And so I was kind of, I was like, okay, what's going on, and how do I make sure I survive through this? And so I just got in, um, and started just working more than ever. And and in those first 2 weeks, I I think with what I did, actually, I know, with me digging in and making some adjustments, I started to see my sales climb back up, and then within a few weeks, higher than before. So it was pretty exciting, and yeah, and so now my sales, and it's due to a number of factors, internal and external, uh, and business wise, but yeah, we're now having some of our best weeks, and I take it week by week right now.
Yeah.
But we're having some of our best weeks as a company right now, especially for different categories. And I have to break it down to categories because, with coronavirus, there's actually phases that was happening when it came to the what was selling online. I don't know if you guys track this. I mean, so in that first phase, there everybody was buying hand sanitizers online. So you could see, like, I mean, if you look at some of the data that's out there, that I get it from some of the e-commerce groups that I'm associated with. But hand sanitizers that first week was like peaking. The next week was toilet paper. And then the week after that, after people were starting to stay home and working, office furniture was going up. The sales of office furniture. Now we have some of those items, so that was great for us. And so we don't have toilet paper and hand sanitizers. So those first 2 weeks didn't really benefit us, but we do have some office furniture SKUs. And so we were selling some of those. Computer equipment was also selling. And then in the fourth week, people were starting to buy slippers. People are buying like slippers, comfortable sweatpants. They're like, okay, now they're getting into their routine, and people are buying. So you're seeing this data, and people are starting to buy, like, comfortable clothes for working at home. And then, but office furniture that started to stay up, and so across the board, like with other e-commerce sellers, it was volatile. Other sellers that are e-commerce based were seeing these fluctuations, and they couldn't pinpoint, like, where it was coming from. I mean, they couldn't predict what was going to be the next phase, and so it was hard to tell in these early days. But anyway, if you started to market your uh, products for what was to come in terms of consumer behavior, you could really ride the wave of this new normal or new abnormal, whatever you want to call it. I heard about a company that sold a bunch of drone camera lenses, or filters, drone filters. I don't know if you've ever had a drone, or any, like, if you're into photography, these filters will help you take. I'm not a photographer, but anyway, there's these drone filters. This company, their least selling SKU were these, those selfie lights, those ring lights. And they just like, this is their least sold SKU. And when people started to use Zoom more, the sale of their drone filters went down, and their number one seller was this selfie light. And then so they had created ads, and they or adjusted the title of their product listing saying Zoom light.
Yep.
Instead
of just selfie light.
And they just changed some wording on their website, and they've had some of the greatest sales ever. And so and that's just an example of how a company had they were somewhat lucky that they had that in their product. Yep. But then they made some adjustments and adapted, and then they saw the market, and so they're probably going to be riding this that way for a while, because I don't see. I mean, people are going to be working home more now. I mean, that's one thing that's I think that it was moving towards that way, but there was a step function, a step change function that happened, and now even as say the if they do come out with a vaccine, I believe that people are still going to be working home more. This has been the great work from home experiment, and and so
it's gonna, and even just the efficiency, a lot of people I'm talking to, like even for myself, like I've been working from home for years now, and so a lot for me has not changed, but I did notice a difference. Like I've been working more hours because I, like you, am changing my business through this time, and so I'm doing that, but then I also still maintained all my family time, and I'm like, how did this happen? And then I remembered, oh well, I didn't get on this plane, I was supposed to go there. Even just little things like going out here or there, anytime you get in your car, you end up spending an hour. So like I haven't been doing as many little trips, so I started adding all that up, and then you're like, whoa, that's why I have all this extra time. So I've actually been able to work more and have more time with my kids while all this is going on, and make significant changes in my business. But everything you just described is a willingness it goes back to this whole theme. I guess we're starting to build a theme here on this talk, but it's tracking what's going on, because that's what you just said. You're tracking on the phases that were going on. And then if your business was able to, some businesses, they didn't have anything to sell. Like if you're so niche in a retail segment that has gone down, then you completely have to reinvent your business, which you can do, and businesses have done that. But where you can do a pivot, where you have, like even you said, you have office furniture SKUs that you were able to say, oh, let's put our emphasis on that. Or like this story you're talking about, where their photography selling drone filters to then the selfie light, they had that in their inventory. They were able to pivot. But ultimately what we're coming down to is tracking what's going on, and then being willing to read the data. And it goes back to like a thing that you just said a little bit ago, is like, even when it's ugly, so like, it could look ugly, and like you said, your sales were down, but you didn't go sit on the couch and get depressed. And even if you did take a hit, like we all do, there's moments where I'm like, like that doesn't this doesn't feel good. But then you said, okay, deep breath, what new decision can I make? So how do you do that? Like, because I mean, I know you've gone through this process, but you've done it a number of times, and maybe it wasn't as fast. I think, you think about the last 10 years, you've had a lot of, oh crap, right? And then it's like, okay, now what? And maybe there was some days where you were depressed. I know I've had it where I have, look, I've never fallen into like a deep depression that I'm aware of, unless my friends would have told me, but maybe my friends haven't told me, but well,
your energy is so up here, Steve, so high that when it's just normal, they're like, Steve's depressed.
Yeah, no. I know it does happen. They're like, are you okay? No, I just got to whisper because my kid's asleep, but I guess what I'm getting at, maybe this is something that you can answer to, like, if you could slow it down for a moment, like if you pinpoint, like, what goes through your mind? You're like, oh crap, this is happening. And then how do you reset? Or does it automatically happen now? Do you automatically go, okay, what am I going to do? Or do you have like a moment where you're like, oh crap, and then you switch out of that? Or is it almost automatic at this point?
Well, I just have to do something. Okay. I even when I don't know what I need to do, I do something. I start to tinker, and that leads me down a path. I don't know if that's kind of what you're asking,
well,
but
no, that's it, because everyone has to have a path. Yeah.
That's
so what do you mean by tinker? Like, what does that look like?
I just do something. If I have something on my mind, so some people get hung up on trying to do things perfectly. And my motto is done is better than perfect. Right.
Yep.
So even, some people spend so much time researching like how to list a product online or what's the perfect product. Just go find something and list, and you'll learn from there.
Right. And you can make some money while you're doing it. Someone might buy.
Yeah. One of the things that, so here's another product. I mean, you'll see, those who, this is a podcast, so they won't be able to see, but behind me, on my wall, you'll see some wall art, and it's of, historic maps. And I've been selling this for years. And, some people would think that this is a discretionary item, a discretionary purchase. It's a necessary. But one thing that you'll notice, whether if you're watching TV or Zoom calls, everybody has something behind them, right? You have a piece of wall art there.
Yep.
Giovanni has some books behind him. I don't see any wall art, but there's wall art behind me, and I'm on I'll watch some of the different networks, and you'll see these people having Zoom calls from their home now, and they'll have wall art. And so people are dressing like the selfie light, wall art. People are dressing up. My sales are going up on this, what you would think, this discretionary like art. Why are people buying art? Well, I think that my sales are up. I have an idea that people are dressing up their Zoom background.
Right.
So, anyway, I don't know.
Well, and the other thing is,
I don't know what
led me down
there, but these are just things, and sometimes you just don't know if and when. You can't predict the future. You just have to. You have to. You have to do something. So I started. Okay, so I'm going back to what did I do? Well, I started to list more. So Steve, when you and I talked, when this crisis, a little bit after this crisis hit, and we had talked, I told you, hey, I'm working more than ever. I'm one of the things I'm doing is I'm just listing. I'm listing, and one of the things I was listing was this historic. These reproductions of historical maps, and sales. I'll tell you, sales have doubled from last year. Right now,
doubled right now doubled. During a crisis.
Yeah.
And I have to put one tangent real fast, and we can come right back to this. But I believe that you have so much energy and tenacity to do this because you've had so much time too. Think about it. You haven't been in the grind. If you're in the grind, because some people are crashing at home on their couches because they've been grinding and grinding, and now this is a big vacation. Yeah. But you know what? You've been living a vacation, and I feel this way too. So it's okay that we're working a bit more, and we're building another business, and we're helping people. So I just have to say that out loud because I was just thinking it. It's like you have this extra energy because you've built it into your life.
Honestly, that motivated me to knowing that some people are sitting. This is my this is my opportunity to just race and get ahead. Yeah. I saw opportunity here, to be honest with you. Some people saw a crisis and doom and gloom, and I really do feel for a lot of the businesses out there that don't have that, that were really trying to fix or just react to trying to save their business that wasn't prepared for, and nobody was really prepared for this, but I feel for the restaurants out there.
Oh my gosh.
All the small businesses. This is, we're all entrepreneurs here. These are my people. I feel like.
Right. Well,
And
one thing, Rhett, to say on that too is, and to continue this conversation is that it matters who you are, because some of the restaurants around here started doing like deliveries and all kinds of stuff, and they made it work. I have one client that is an event business. All the events stopped, and he just closed a week ago. His second biggest client ever, transferring their full event into a virtual event.
wow.
They're taking over a drive-in movie theater, and they're having events there where people come in and they give the thing, and it hasn't been used in 5 years, the drive-in. So they're like retrofitting that. They're already doing it for graduations, high school. They're having the high school graduation at the movie theater so that everyone stays separate, and like, but way to think different. And they're not only surviving, they're thriving.
Opportunity, my friend. There's lots of opportunity out there. Oh, so much opportunity.
And it can be all with compassion. We're not saying here, let's go gobble up on someone else's problem. We're actually solving problems, and then people are happy to pay for those problems to be solved. And so I think, like, there are events that have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then to have it be canceled. What if you can convert that to virtual, and someone was there to hold your hand through that? What if the other thing, if you're bringing up the aesthetics of our house, I've been hearing from people, even if they're not using it for their Zoom call, they just never were living at their house. Right. They were working so much, they're at home, and they're like, this place sucks. Right. I was talking to a real estate agent that I also help, and they have people calling right now, and they're like, this is the first time I've actually been in my house this much. I hate this house. I want to sell it. So like that too.
And probably, I'm sure I haven't been able to interview my customers, but yeah, I'm sure that some for Zoom calls, some are just like, oh my God, my house is like a wreck. I need to like dress this up. So yeah, but
but you're helping.
Yeah. Yeah. And I get so excited. Like, I get so excited really when I think about, when I said opportunity, there really is. And I think that this whole thing, what's been happening, there's a silver lining behind this coronavirus, COVID-19. And that's, I believe that in a lot of ways, the playing field is even, and this new frontier of what people are going to be doing, right? I think that the world has changed, and a lot of it is here to stay. And I think that we will work back towards our old normal, but there's going to be definitely like some things that we abandon, some things that are going to be new, some things we keep. There's going to be a new normal, and there's just so much opportunity. There is. So I love those stories of these businesses and entrepreneurs that are finding ways, to grow and thrive and meet these opportunities that are out there, create these new opportunities that are out there. And
someone told me once, Rhett, that if business, if you look at it one way, and it's something I've been teaching my kids too, they're like, well, what is business, Dad? Well, how do you want to help people? What problem are you going to solve? And it could be entertainment, it could be wall art. All those are problems. Some are smaller, some are bigger. But one person told me, I can't remember who it was who said this, but the bigger the problem you solve, the more revenue comes from that. And if you think about it, it's absolutely true. Like, the bigger the problem that people are having, the more they're willing to pay to get rid of it. Yeah. And ultimately, large and small, what are we doing? Hopefully what we're doing, because I've even had people say, I can't do business right now. I need to give, virtual hugs. And yes, you should be sending love, and you should be making sure everyone's okay. But then I ask them, I say, well, was your business hurting people? Like, does your business take away from people's lives? Like, really? And they're like, no. What are you, crazy? I'm like, well, then why? What does it do? Does it help people? Yes, it does. This is how we help people. Okay, great. Then why would you stop?
Yeah.
Why would you stop? Yeah. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, right now, I help businesses. That's part of my life, especially right now for me. Like, why would I stop? If you're selling a product, and right now online shopping is not just a luxury. It's like a must. We've had to move everything to online. You know, luckily we already did online shopping, so it was easy for us to migrate. But there are
some people have never shopped. They still have held out, but this had forced them.
Yes.
Like, oh my God, you can really
buy what you want.
Yeah, no,
so then you're helping
that there
people.
are some people out there who had never, still before pre-COVID, had never shopped online, but there are people, and yeah, this had brought more people to online shopping for sure. Yeah.
So you're helping more people, and so that's where the opportunity comes. Just to ground ourselves in what we're doing, right? So if we can solve a problem, then we're doing it. And then then going back to what we started this call with, if you track what you're doing, how can you help people better? What products? Because you haven't always sold the same products. Like some things that were thought to be a good idea weren't, and you got rid of them. And then you're working on this. Like I know you're most excited about these historic prints right now, and maybe just and that's and to give you a plug, I know that's super cool what you're doing. Even that's what's behind you. For those that are seeing the video when we promote this on YouTube, you have your whole machine back there, and you can basically print these historical maps.
Yeah. Well, first, I mean, these are these are historic maps that I have a team of designers that help work to restore and repair and enhance some of these maps. So some of them have like folds, creases, or discoloration, blemishes, tears, stamps, and we fix that, and we try to we fix it while keeping its historical character. And and these are the things that we sell. So they're beautiful, beautiful pieces of art that I think really add life to any space. I really believe in them. I love them.
Yeah. Well, and then that's why you do that. I think we all have to be passionate about what we do. I know that my family likes looking at maps more and more too, especially as we travel, because then you can see, and then also how different parts of the world were depicted. Even the way that some maps were manipulated too. Like there's some out there, it's like they were even purposely made different continents look bigger. I mean, there's all kinds of crazy shenanigans that happen as well.
Well, so there's a story behind it. Yeah, there's definitely a story. There's a story behind each map. It's amazing. And so I love coming across these new maps and then understanding the story behind it. It's fascinating.
Yeah,
it really is.
That's awesome. And this is where we're in a global audience now. Like years ago, to have this business in a retail shop in a small town, you wouldn't make it because maybe you could sell a couple. But now you're global. There's a group of collectors that would want this, that's large enough for you to be able to run $1 million business based on one collectible, and many people can do this. And now, because this is where the opportunity like that we get excited about, the opportunity to be a global business right now. Like one story for me, Rhett, is like about 4 weeks ago, we did our first virtual event. Cause me, for the last decade, I've been speaking and doing live events, and I realized how much of a dinosaur I've been, that I haven't had more things digital. So it's even putting pressure on me right now. We did our event, and get this, during the meal break, I was having lunch with those that were here in California. Then we had people from Australia, and they were having breakfast. And then the people in Puerto Rico that were in the class, they were having dinner. So during the meal break, we literally had breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the same time. It was. I've had people from all over come to California to come to the events, but this is the first time we literally were global. It was a global event, and and that happened right now. And I probably wouldn't have done that for another couple of years.
Right. But this was always on your mind. I remember us talking about that, and this was part of your plan, but now you're forced into it. I mean, this is kind of, this forced it. I mean, again, there's a silver lining. I don't know. I mean,
absolutely. I'm grateful. I'm very, very grateful. And we even have some past attendees that re-attended, and they told me it was as good, if not better.
Yeah.
And so we're acting as a company to do more of this. And so our next event is also going to be virtual, just because even though we might be in the clearing as the event starts, I wanted to give everyone peace of mind to not have to worry about getting flights and all that. And so again, all of us are we're making pivots. And so I think, just these stories now just remind you that here we're talking about a certain situation, but think of how many situations we had, whether the economy was good. Because even look at, you just said you went through something in 2017, 2018, economy was fantastic, right?
Yeah.
And we still went through a personal, and I've done that too. My biggest crisis was 2008. I went through some stuff. Of course, I had revenue loss, all kinds of stuff. I somehow managed to hold on for 4 years. And then I took this opportunity to go to Australia. And I thought that was going to be the thing to fill my coffers back up. Because for 4 years, I never got to get my savings or any of those things. But instead of helping me, it took me all the way out. So when everyone else was like into recovery, like 2012, 13 is starting to get good, that's when I finally collapsed. So like, you never know when your own crisis is going to come. And I hope like from this stories that we've been telling, the stories we've been telling today is like, number one, look at your business, even if it's ugly. And that's what I had to do when everything collapsed on me. I had to say, okay, here's where I am. It's kind of like admitting this is the reality, and then say, okay, now what would I like?
Yeah.
So we're getting close to having to wrap up here. We have like a few more minutes, but if we were to think just on this, because this has kind of been our theme, it's like, hey, look at what's going on in your business, then make the choices you want. And whether it's during regular business times or during crisis, but what would you say as people start to examine their business and start to make new choices? Is there like a thing or two that you would recommend for like, first step when they start looking at their business, this detail that we're talking about?
Are we talking about people that want to jump into entrepreneurship that are maybe working for a company, or people that
probably listen to this are already entrepreneurs, or maybe they're about to jump in, but I think more of our audience are already entrepreneurs or executives, and they're looking how to have a better life. So maybe, it's like, as you've examined your business, like, I guess actually, you know what, let me change the question. Now you got me thinking, Rhett. Thanks for asking me a question back. But when you think about it, remember how I want to add something, and then this will be a great way to end the show. It's like, how we talked about designing it around our life, and then looking at the numbers. One thing we didn't really talk about that we kind of did was I said, how many hours do you want to work? Remember when I started asking you this? And then I was like, okay, now we look at the data. Here's what revenue you'd like to make. And it kind of makes like a math equation. Remember like the beginning of algebra? It's like, X plus 5 equals 8. Now we know, okay, X is a 3. So we kind of work backwards like that. It's like, okay, I want to work this many hours. I want to make this much money. So then what's the X that we have to do, right? So it kind of compartmentalizes. And then it doesn't mean, like what you said, taking action is the most important thing. We don't know. Sometimes we don't know as easy as that. Sometimes we don't know X is 3, but we're like, it's better to try putting something in the spot of X than to put nothing there.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I guess in all of that, what I was looking for is if somebody only got to talk to you right now, let's say this is the last time someone heard from you right now, Rhett, and then and they loved what we're saying. If you could if you were going to give one piece of advice to someone, whether they're starting or they're in business already, if you have to pick one, go towards the one that they're already in business, because that's probably who's listening to this.
Sure.
What would be that one? Is there one nugget?
Well, people go into entrepreneurship for freedom, right? And one thing that seems counterintuitive, for lack of a better word, is that structure creates freedom. So you need to plan your week ahead, plan your next day, set a block of time that you're going to work, and then stop when you're at the end of that time, and then do what you want to do, whether it's spend time with your family, time with yourself, exercise. Give yourself that time that you want to work and do as much as you can within that time. Structure will give you that freedom that you want. That's my piece of advice.
It's beautiful. I always say that sometimes we think of freedom as that feather in the wind just blowing, and there are times maybe where we want to actually have some time just to let loose. But overall, if we live our life as that feather, then really do we have any control or choice of our life? Then the wind really is taking control.
It becomes chaotic.
Yeah. And so really the idea is to have a plane so you can fly wherever you want, right? And, basically be the bird, not the feather. Be the bird, not the feather. So you could choose where to go. And it's beautifully said, brother. Like, it's structured freedom, which sounds like the biggest oxymoron. And
it's oxymoron. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah, an oxymoron.
I remember when I learned that word oxymoron, I was like, oh, I'm going to remember that one. Like it's definitely a cool concept. And it's so true here. The more you structure things, the more freedom you actually have. And that's pretty much what we talked about since the beginning of this. So it's just a great bookends to this, because we talk about tracking and the things people think are the least sexy part of business actually give you the sexiness of the business, because you've genuinely, and kudos to you, brother. Like, I know you gave me kudos for the coaching, but I always tell people, if I'm coaching you and you do the work, this is a team effort. And that's why you have the success you have, because I might have given you some guidance, but I never took over flying the plane. It was your plane. I was the guy on the tarmac with the lights and just hoping you not bang the wings. And you did it, and you're still doing it. And I have to say, it was kind of like almost a parent moment when I did call you weeks back when all this is going, and I hung up. I've been making sure, I've been concerned about everyone and all their businesses. And when I got the call with you, I wasn't concerned at all. I was like, oh, Rhett's good. It was like a parent seeing their kid leave the house and they're totally okay. And they're going to take care of themselves. I believe in you, brother. You're always going to take care of yourself, man.
Thank you. Yeah. I love to build things. I love to work. I love to, this is my business, is my creative outlet, and when I get bored with what some of the things that I'm doing, on a regular basis, I go and experiment. I don't know if I said it earlier, but I tinker a lot, with new ideas, and, let me try to list that, or I don't know, just, I try different things and, see where that may take me. So, a lot of, entrepreneurs have this natural, innate desire to create something. And so, spend a little bit of time doing that, and, reserve time, in your week, even to daydream, and and play around, and always be curious, always that you never know where things are going to lead, and that's where a lot of my discoveries have been made. Some of the life-changing things, like, oh wow, I just kind of, I didn't even, I didn't know that this idea that I had, and would help me design my business to take this big, to pivot in this direction or create this new product line.
Which comes from that structure, because you gave yourself freedom to daydream. If somebody's just grinding out there right now, which you and I both know what that's like, then you don't have the freedom to daydream, and then those big ideas get lost. And so, it's beautiful. So I think, everyone out there listening, give yourself space to dream, and that's why I like to meditate every day. For me, that may not be, everyone may not sit and do that, but I like to do that because it gives me that time every day to just be with myself, because otherwise sometimes I can be too much of a doer. And then if it's not meditation, I give, find some of the time. One of my friends from Australia who teaches meditation, he always says, if you don't like to meditate, just take longer showers, because in the shower, you're just going to think. But but what I just heard you say, just to echo it, to give yourself space. So this has been a beautiful conversation, brother, to go from, how we structure our businesses, to be able to have the life we want, to ask the questions of what we want, to daydream, and to be able to willing to morph, change, try things, and look for the opportunity in any crisis, and be able to, you've not only helped many other businesses out there, and even sharing the story helps other businesses, but you've also been able to take care and raise your family and be an awesome husband and dad and run millions and millions of dollars of business over the years is a beautiful thing. And this is a gift. Thank you for sharing your story and being willing to be transparent and just have this conversation, because more people need to know that there's a choice out there and they can have it. So thanks so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you.
Rhett.
Thank you. This is my first podcast, so hopefully I didn't seem too nervous or choppy with my thoughts.
Well, thank you for being vulnerable and doing that. And I think some people might want some historic prints too. So we'll put your website in the show notes, and if someone wants an awesome map, then they'll be able to get it. So we'll do that for you, Rhett.
I've got some beautiful ones.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. All right, thank you so much, brother.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the More Business, More Life podcast. I hope you got value. And if you did, we have so many more things for you at stevenapolitan.com. You'll be able to connect with us on social media. We are active. You can ask us questions. And then on top of that, I want to give you a really big gift. And it truly is. We want to give so much value. We have an offering. It's a program called Clear Path to Customers. It's the same way that we attract wow clients and only working with the right people, the people we want to. And it's transformed my business into millions more in revenue with the right people and my clients. And we're doing it absolutely free. So you can go to stevenapolitan.com and grab that. You just got to put in your information. We'll send it to you promptly. And that again is on stevenapolitan.com. I look forward to having you on the next show. Until then, remember, choose gratitude and create freedom.